Perik Ches, Halacha Tes is what we're learning today in Chametz U'Matzah. And afterwards, you continue your meal and he eats. This is after he washes his hand, he meets the moitzah, the matzah, the matzah. When you say the simonim, actually, you're supposed to say Shulchan Aruch, moitzi matzah, moro koirech. You have it's moitzi and matzah, is it one or two simonim? And he eats all that he wants to eat. He drinks all that he wants to. So we go down to the Peirush. The Peirush we find, we're going to discuss the eating of the Avikoyman in the time of the Beis HaMikdash and today. The reason in the Babylon Yerushalmi why you eat the Bosa Pesach at the end of the meal. If you should eat from the Korban Pesach in the middle of the meal or only at the end. Why you don't eat anything after the Avikoyman, and eating or drinking after the Avikoyman. Now, in Tezi says, Varakach, after he ate from the Pesach and from the Matzah Mora, he continues in his Suda. I think it should say here after he ate from the Matzah. No, but he continue. This is according to the Tzlach, who says that you can start off with Pesach and end with Pesach as well. You continue your meal and you eat as much. He eats whatever he wants. You can drink anything, including wine, in the middle of the meal. It's not added koises. And then he eats at the end from bosa pesach, even a small amount of the kezayis. And after eating the korban pesach, he does not eat anything, taste anything after that. It was manaseh today, when we don't have a korban pesach. He eats the kezayis matzah at the end. He doesn't eat anything afterwards. In order, so that at the end of the meal should come about the time of Bosa Pesach, and the time of the Beis HaMikdash, you have the taste of the Pesach. Hamatzah b'fiv, or the matzah in his mouth, shachilos, and he may mitzvah, because that's the main mitzvah of the night. You want to remain with the taste of mitzvah. So the Rambam writes, the main din zeh in Perek Vov, Halacha Yud Aleph. You don't eat anything after the matzah, even not nuts or anything else. But even though he ate matzah and he ate afterwards other items, he has to eat at the end because I have matzah, meaning the meal doesn't have to be one matzah. It can have many goodies to it. Otherwise, the stores wouldn't be selling all that they sell. So the Maggid Mishnah cites the Gemara in Psochim, Amar Shmuel Maftina Matzah Avikoyman, and the V'chein Maftina Pesach Avikoyman. What is the reason in the Babylon Yerushalmi why you eat the Bosa Pesach at the end of the Suda? Zohar says the Chagiga, as we mentioned, there was another korban which, if it wasn't Shabbos, was brought. And according to one Mandiyoma, even on Shabbos you would bring it, but we don't paskin like that. So the Chagiga, which came in the Pesach, was eaten first, in order that the final kezayis of Pesach should be eaten when a person is satiated. And the Rambam brings down the whole korban Pesach. It's a mitzvah and amuvchut. It's the best performance of the mitzvah to eat the bosa Pesach when you're satiated. Therefore, if he brought a chagiga on the 14th, he eats from it first, and then he eats bosa Pesach in order to be satiated from it. And if he didn't eat it only at kezayis, he was yoytze yidei chayvasa. He has fulfilled his obligation. Yerushalmi says, what's the reason Pesach is eaten when you're satiated? So Rabbi Yossi Berabun says she shouldn't come to break a bone, because if you're hungry, you might end up breaking the bones. You're not allowed to break a bone of the Korban Pesach. Menoach explains the question of the Rambam of the Yerushalmi. Why do you need to have why is the obligation of leaving the Pesach in your mouth to taste more so than eating the Pesach for the beginning of the meal? That's when most people enjoy the meal. And he answers, because if he'll eat it when he's hungry, out of his hunger, he will come to break a proportion. Remember, the Korban Pesach was less than 1 year old, and it was much softer, the bones, than the animals that we eat today. That's why it's also in Torah. It says if a person wanted to have just a private family lamb bake, so he would take a small lamb, which was might be only 8 or 9 days old, which is quite small. Now the Rae Gann tells us the Yerushalmi does not disagree with the Bavli. The Yerushalmi is explaining why you don't eat the Korban Pesach at the beginning, and the Bavli is explaining why you don't eat afterwards. After you finished with the Korban Pesach, at the time of the Pesach will be piv. So you have two reasons. You don't eat it at the beginning, so you shouldn't eat it when you're hungry, and you might break a bone. And after it, you don't eat it, so you'll have it today. Today we don't have any Korban Pesach yet. We may have it this year in Yetz Hashem, but at the moment we don't. So the matzah at the end has to remain the taste in his mouth. As far as breaking it, you can break the matzah. In fact, I always tease children, why do they break so much in their home the night of Pesach? And they look at me, I didn't break anything. I said, yes, you did. You broke the matzah to eat it, didn't you? Now, if he ate from the Korban Pesach in the middle of the meal or at the end. And the Rambam would seem that the time of the Beis HaMikdash, he would eat the Korban Pesach even at the beginning of the meal. Like he says in Halacha Zayin, that he eats from the Pesach, and here he writes, he eats from the Pesach Kizayas at the end. And the Maharam Chalvo is infers from the Mishnah Sochem 119b, that means that Pesach is eaten at the end. And the Mishnah, and another Mishnah, he says in Sochem Kuf Yudalad that they brought before him matzah, chazeres, v'charoises, u'shnei tavshilim. So it would seem that at the very beginning they bring him both tavshilim, one which is the chagigo, and the second one was the Korban Pesach. And well, here we'll turn the page. The chagigo, the Korban Pesach, and he writes there that he bring at the beginning. Furthermore, he asks a question. The Mishnah in 121a says he made the bracha on the zevach, which was the chagigo. He made the birchas hazevach ala Pesach, and he made it by accident on the Pesach. He was not yoytze his obligation. So it would seem that he ate the Pesach before he ate the Korban Chagiga. There we mentioned that the Tzlach says that he may have started with it, and then in the middle had the Chagiga, and then completed with it. So the Maram Chalvor says that they ate from the Korban Pesach at the beginning also. Just at the end of the meal, at the end of the day, ate one kizayas that has to be on when you're satiated. So too b'matzah, when we eat at the end of the meal, Zeichel Pesach, which was eaten on the soiva, so we eat it at the end. With that, we can understand. We can answer the question of Rabbeinu Manoach, why somebody who made a brocha on Pesach does not by making the brocha on Pesach, and he's going to eat from the Chagigo, does not fulfill his obligation to make the brocha on the Chagigo, and on the Pesach you're only eating at the end. And according to the Maram Chalvor, we have the same answer that we have from the Tzlach, because they ate the Korban Pesach at the beginning, so he may have made a mistake on which brocha he made, so he has to make the brocha again. Although technically, if he had both of them in front of him, and he had in mind both of them, then he would not have to make another brocha. He would just have to eat the chagigo, and then he would make another bracha for the Pesach. Although it would seem that this has nothing to do with the Rambam or with the Peirush, that it could be that if he wants to start with the Pesach, that's what he wants to begin with. So he should have the taste of Pesach to begin with as well, and be able to fulfill that obligation, and then eats the chagiga to fill his stomach, and then fulfills his final obligation at the end. The Rashbam says, in order that he won't lose the taste of Pesach, because he has to be eaten at the end of the meal while you're satiated. As is the rule with other karbonis, if you eat them, you're supposed to eat them when you're satiated. How do you know that? Because it says in Bamidbar, that to all Bnei Yisrael I have given it to you for moshcha, and Rashi says it means the lotion of gedula, greatness. And people who eat something special, they eat it like the kings eat it, and they don't eat in a Suda when they're hungry. Rather, there's a smorgasbord, there's all the preparation to the main course. There's the first course, the entree, and the other, the soup, and everything else is to bring you to the main course. But according to the Rambam, that is in addition to the idea of eating it when you're satiated, and it's to leave the taste in your mouth. So there's two aspects to it. One, you should eat it so when you're satiated, and the second one is you should remember that you ate it, and that's why you don't eat after the matzah or after the korban pesach, not anything else. Halacha l'maisa. What's the halacha? Again, remember the Shulchan Aruch only refers to actual halacha in today's times. He doesn't mention the korban pesach. So the Mechaber writes in Tuf Ayin Zayin, after he finishes all the Suda, you eat from the matzah shmura, which is under the tablecloth. Remember, you put away a half a piece under the tablecloth. A kezayah is for everyone. Seichel Pesach, in the commemoration of the Pesach, which was eaten when you were satiated. And the matzah shmura that's under the matzah is the middle one, which we broke in the middle. We, of course, today have a whole is a whole ceremony that the children come and steal it, and that's to keep them awake, and then you buy it from them. And the Mishnah Berurah writes, l'chatchila it's good to eat two kezesim for the Avikoyman, one for the Pesach, one for the matzah that has to be eaten with the Pesach. So you really have, at the time that they had the korban Pesach, you have to remember they ate. Technically, they put in their mouths more than two kezesim. As we said, you can swallow two kezesim at one time. You have to have more with it as well. If you ate it al matzah samurim, like the Rishonim, you eat after koyim zechel matzah, which was eaten with the Pesach together. Bekricho. Furthermore, whether it was a sandwich or it was put together like they do, it was softer and they could mold it together like they do some type of falafel, which I forget what it's called, the long one. Huh? Lafel? Lafa. Or furthermore, the Mishnah Berurah writes that even though women are obligated with this, because Avikoyim is Echel Pesach, and by the first Pesach, everyone holds the rights for women to bring a korban Pesach. The second Pesach is a question. The Mishnah Berurah adds, you have to be careful that they should have some desire, because if you're eating a meal after you're fully satiated, then it's not called eating. It's called achilo gaso, and you're not yoitze the obligation of Pesach. Furthermore, the Mechaber writes, and you should eat it leaning, like a free man, and you shouldn't make a new bracha. If you ate the Avikoyim without leaning, the Mishnah Berurah says that if he can't eat anymore, he doesn't have to repeat it. However, if he can, he should do so. Mishnah Berurah says you don't make a bracha because it's only a zeicha korban Pesach, which seems to be saying that if you would have the korban Pesach, you would make a new bracha, but you already said a korban. If you ate the korban Pesach at the beginning of the meal, what is he referring to? But he's saying that even though it's an obligation of the Rabbanon, which probably he's referring to, even though it's a mitzvah Rabbanon to eat it at the end, they did not enact a special bracha for it, because it's only a zeichel l'korban Pesach. We'll turn the page. The Shloah writes that I saw Bnei Aliyah, people who were special, that they would kiss the matzah in the morah, and then the sukkah when they go in and when they go out. I know that when we leave the sukkah, at the end of Pesach, we kiss the sukkah, but at the beginning of sukkahs, I don't remember that. And the Arba Minim, before we put them away, we also kiss it. I guess to begin with, we don't do it. I'm not sure why, but that's what the Shloah writes. Happy is he who serves Hashem b'simcha. Furthermore, the Mechaber writes, you should be careful to eat it before Chatzos. Now, this is the question the Mishnah Berurah writes. That's at Zeichel Pesach, and the Machloikis whether the Pesach is eaten the whole night, but midrabanan, even though it can be eaten the whole night, you should eat it to begin with before Chatzos. Certainly, the first kezayas, you make halachilas matzah here. You see again, the Mishnah Berurah was careful not to denigrate the minhagim of others. and Chassidim eat it late, so they eat the first matzah before Chatzos. You shouldn't eat it after Chatzos. But the Evan, if inadvertently, if you got very late, there's a question among the Rishonim whether you yotzi yedei chayvosoi. The Avnei Nezer says when you eat the first kazayas, you should have in mind to yotzi the zechel of Pesach. And he wants to say that even a Korban Pesach in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, you could make after Chatzos it was mutter to be eaten as a shlomim, but you couldn't fulfill the obligation of Korban Pesach, and therefore you could eat it after Chatzos, and you wouldn't have loss of the taste of Pesach, because the taste of Pesach would be there. And the question is whether you were satiated at the time you ate before Chatzos, because you had not, if you can eat so much more afterwards, then obviously you weren't satiated. Now, can you drink or eat after the Avikoyman? Obviously, we just said you can't eat afterwards. The Mechaber just points out that after the Avikoyman, you don't eat anything. Mishnah Berurah says you shouldn't get rid of the taste of the matzah of the Avikoyman. That you should leave it in your mouth as long as you can. But the Evet, if you ate afterwards, you should eat another kazayas of matzah shmura. Shem Avikoyman. Remember, you cannot fulfill the mitzvah of matzah with it's not matzah shmura. Even though you're allowed to eat matzah, during the Holocaust, people didn't have matzah for a whole Pesach that was shmura, but they had matzah which was not chometz. So therefore, you could fulfill your obligation of matzah shmura. Is the only way you can fulfill the first night's obligation. And he writes there further, regarding drinking after the Avikoyman, there's the machlokes among the poskim, and one should be machmir to drink, and not to drink something that will cause him to become drunk, such as, we can't drink beer because that's chometz, but let's assume vodka, which was made out of potato alcohol, or shlit, which was made out of plum alcohol. You can, wine, be a question of being moisif on the koises. That's why he uses the language of something that's going to cause you to become shikor. You can't drink it, even though technically the difficulty is understanding why the taste of liquid tends to also remove the taste of food. Why they differentiate between liquid and food, they both would dissolve the taste. But to begin with, one should be careful. You shouldn't drink anything except for water, because people need to drink water, and that's mutter lishtos, that you could. The tea, when it comes to tea, what we call tea, the Mishnah Berurah writes it's like mayim, and you can drink it afterwards. Although I've never seen anyone drink anything except the kois revi after the fourth kois.